Okay. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today as we speak about Bill 180, the Ontario One Call Act, 2011. This is something I feel quite passionate about, and I'm very pleased to have received the support that I have to date. First, I would like to introduce two people who have been instrumental in bringing Bill 180 to fruition. On my left, I have Jim Douglas, President of the Ontario Regional Common Ground Alliance, and on my right is Paul Rietdyk, Vice President of Distribution and Operations for Union Gas. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your continued support, gentlemen. As many of you may already know, April is Dig Safe Month in Canada. So across this country, many people are participating in events to raise awareness of the need to call before you dig. I also participated in one of these events at Dundas Square earlier this month. This short and simple message, call before you dig, makes a clear and eloquent statement and provides the most important piece of advice for any homeowner or excavator prior to starting a project. And let me explain why. My riding of Sarnia-Lambton is home to Ontario's oil, gas, and chemical industry. And just prior to my election to the House, I was employed at Nova Chemicals as a construction coordinator and was also in charge at that time of excavation permits. In both of these positions, it was very clear that safety was always job one. Unfortunately, across the province, homeowners and excavators don't have a construction safety coordinator to plan and double-check all of their work. Instead, homeowners and excavators alike are expected to navigate this province's patchwork system to locate all of the underground infrastructure prior to excavation. Today, Ontarians are using a system which is unnecessarily compromising the safety of homeowners and excavators alike. The current system is outdated, overcomplicated, and cumbersome. This underground infrastructure can include, but is not exclusive to, electrical and telecommunication wires, gas and oil pipelines, water mains, sewer mains, and anything else that could be underground where you are about to excavate. However, the simple fact is that in many communities across this great province, homeowners or excavators have to call up to 13 different agencies to account for everything where they are about to excavate. This current system may have worked in decades past, but today, industry alone estimates that there is over $100 billion worth of underground assets and infrastructure in our province underground. Unsurprisingly, and not surprisingly, with Ontario's rapidly growing complexity of underground infrastructure, accidental hits to pipelines, especially those carrying natural gas and other liquids, are an increasing threat to public safety for all Ontarians. So, with this average of 13 numbers to call in order to mark and locate your underground infrastructure, I don't think it's much of a surprise that many homeowners, and unfortunately many excavators, simply do not bother to call for these locates before they dig. And when you don't bother to call, you risk yourself, your family, and your neighbor's safety. I believe that my bill will go a long way to solve this problem. Bill 180, the Ontario One Call Act of 2011, proposes to create a single call center and database for all underground locates, free for use by homeowners and excavators alike. So instead of making those 13 calls to receive your locates, homeowners and excavators alike would make one free call to Ontario One Call, and they would ensure the proper utility arrives to mark that underground asset. Before I pass this off to Jim and to Paul to explain why this is so important to their industry and safety, I would like you to consider a couple of examples. Accidents due to not calling before you dig can be as minor as cutting through a neighbor's internet cable while you plant a tree, or as tragic as the following case. Last autumn, Genco Masonry was fined $225,000 following a fatal explosion at the site of a residential home construction. This company was employed to do landscaping work at this residence when they accidentally punctured a fuel line leading to the property. This propane leached through the earth and into the homeowner's basement, and tragically, a 58-year-old grandmother of 3, who was in the home at the time, died in the resulting explosion, and 3 other people were seriously injured. Last November, the Ministry of Labour discovered that this company had made no effort to discover the location of the underground utilities or to, in fact, have these locates marked. In Ontario, over a 16-month period from January of 2008 to April of 2009, there were over 2,500 gas pipeline strikes alone. 2 of these strikes resulted in fatalities. In 2010, there were over 3,000 hits. The evidence of the effects of mandatory one-call systems is clear and abundant. Currently, each and every United States state has in place a mandatory one-call system and a national phone number. In the United States of America, you dial 811 and you are automatically connected to a one-call center. As a result, incidences of infrastructure and utility damage has decreased dramatically by up to 70% between 2004 and 2008 alone. 70%. I believe that it is long overdue for our province to have a mandatory one-call system, which is why I introduced Bill 180, the Ontario One Call Act 2011. Bill 180 will create that single call center for all underground locates for use by homeowners and excavators alike. Now, I'd like to call on Paul to explain how this is so important to his industry.
Great. Thank you, Bob. We're thrilled that Bill 180 has been introduced at Queen's Park and will be formally debated at second reading today in the provincial legislature. We fully support Bill 180 and urge all MPPs to support it. For the last 5 years, we have been urging the provincial government to legislate mandatory participation of utility asset owners and excavators in a single one-call locate system. Ontario needs a single, mandatory one-call locate system that requires the participation of all asset owners. We do not believe that safety is voluntary. Public and worker safety are at risk when utility lines are struck or damaged because homeowners, building contractors, or other excavators do not obtain the precise locations before digging. Today, Ontario excavators and homeowners are legally required to obtain the location of all utility lines before breaking ground. However, homeowners do not know who to call, while excavators may take shortcuts. They both must independently navigate their way through a complex system. As a result of this onerous approach, critical steps are being missed or ignored. This can mean drastic, even deadly results. In fact, it already has. Why such shortcuts? Well, excavators and homeowners may need to call up to 13 separate phone numbers in order to obtain the utility underground locations of all the utility lines near a dig site. In fact, nearly 45% of all incidents involving damage to Union Gas pipelines are because of third parties, both excavators and homeowners, digging without first obtaining the location of underground utilities. Last year, there were over 3,000 natural gas line breaks in Ontario, with over 1,200 of them being at Union Gas. There are more unsafe practices resulting in injuries and deaths of Ontarians. Economic analysts conservatively estimate that damages caused by excavators who don't obtain the location of utility lines cost utility customers, municipalities, and ultimately taxpayers about $33 million a year. There are additionally indirect cost savings related to dispatching emergency services such as fire, police, and ambulance services, and reduced liability related to injuries and other fatalities, avoiding business interruption and other productivity losses. As the owner of about 65,000 kilometers of pipelines and a company that digs over 30,000 holes a year, we believe that there are four major benefits of a one-call locate system. There's the reduced risk of a serious public emergency, and ultimately it saves lives. It's cost-effective in that it will save customers, excavators, municipalities, and ultimately taxpayers money. It's business-friendly in that it streamlines business processes and will ultimately result in increased productivity for excavators. And it's effective. It works. In the United States, a mandatory one-call system has been successfully implemented in over 50 jurisdictions. Over a 4-year period of time, damages were decreased by about 70%. We've had the privilege of being a founding member of Ontario One Call along with the Enbridge Gas Distribution and Bell Canada, and we're happy to see this as a next logical step towards a single mandatory one-call system in Ontario. We also had the privilege of being a founding member of the Ontario Regional Common Ground Alliance. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Jim Douglas.
Jim? Thanks, Paul. Bob, I'm delighted to be here today to speak about a subject that we're extremely passionate about at the ORCGA. The ORCGA, the Ontario Regional Common Ground Alliance, was founded in 2003, and it was a result of a concern from utilities, regulators, and others about the fragmented industry in Ontario and the ongoing line strikes that were, for lack of a better word, causing deaths across the province. The organization was made up in those days of Union Gas, Bell, Enbridge Gas, Sewer and Water Association, and the Technical Safety and Standards. Since that evolvement of the alliance, we have made a tremendous impact in the industry in bringing together stakeholders. Currently, we have 19 stakeholders across Ontario, which really represents everyone that has a shared responsibility for damage prevention. Hence, the title of the alliance, Bringing People Together. In 2004, we developed a set of best practices for the industry that now are held as the benchmark that should be followed in damage prevention. One of the best practices in those days involved one call, or the lack of one call, knowing that we had an organization who called Ontario One Call, which was implemented, as Paul says, in 1996, but it wasn't a true one call. We called it that one call in those days because we thought everybody would come on board. It would be a no-brainer, all for the sake of safety. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, hence the reason we're here today. In 2005, the ORCGA developed a one-call proposal for the province of Ontario. And that one-call proposal was handed to the government. And since that time, we have been working closely with the government to implement mandatory one-call in Ontario. In 2009, the Ministry of Consumer Services began a project called One Call to Dig project. And really what it was, surveying all the stakeholders as to how can we get this in place. The government was supportive of it. However, they took a bit of a volunteer approach, which was fine. They wanted to understand what was out there in the industries, why people wouldn't just automatically join. It seemed like a no-brainer. However, they didn't come on board, and we need mandatory one-call participation, as you know. In 2009, we implemented Dig Safe Ontario, and as you heard from Bob, Ontario has been really instrumental in the formation of the Canadian Common Ground Alliance, and we're very fortunate to see the announcement a few weeks ago by Senator Zimmer that there was a declaration made for Dig Safe across the province, across the country. So we're very pleased with that. It's estimated there are somewhere between 10,000 to 15 incidents a year or events. And as Bob said, that can anywhere from a cable cut to something catastrophic. We don't know how many they are because we've only got a few people inputting into our system, which is a recording system for incidents. And we do know that in 2007, we had the same people who were inputting. We had 10,000 line strikes. And when we input from the same folks today, that is down at 5,600. So already we're seeing the impact of education from the ORCGA and the industry. Major education focus, and it is paying dividends. However, the number of damages as a result of no locates has almost remained constant around 40%, which means that each day in Ontario, someone puts a shovel in the ground, a backhoe, or a drill with no locates. Quite frankly, it's playing Russian roulette. The underground system today is extremely complex. If we went back 25 years ago, maybe that wasn't the case, but today it is very complex under there. Telecommunications, gas and water, electrical lines under there. And more happening because of, for example, deregulation of the electrical industry, deregulation of the telecommunications industry. We need to have every facility owner in the province of Ontario part of one call system, Ontario One Call. And we need that. We have needed that for many years, but we certainly need it today. There's very little reason why people should not be on board. However, after several years of trying to convince people this is the right thing to do, unfortunately, that always hasn't happened. We have lobbied with them. We'll continue to lobby with our stakeholders to make sure they understand and we can remove any obstacles. But quite frankly, the announcement by Bob Bailey of a private members bill going through, quite frankly, has just inspired our entire industry, which is made up now of 450 members, but really thousands upon thousands of excavators across the province. So we are delighted to be here today. We're delighted that Mr. Bailey has put this through, and we support it 100%. And we look forward to working with Mr. Bailey and the government to make sure this bill gets implemented. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have any questions from the media?
Yes, actually. So this call, the call line already exists, but, sorry, how many people did you say, how many do you estimate are not participating in this?
There's about a little over 600 facility owners in the province of Ontario, so that's all municipalities, all utilities, electrical LDCs, and approximately 140 are members of Ontario One Call. So there's a gap of close to 500.
And I take it it's paid for by the members, is that how it works?
It is paid for it's a free service for excavators.
Yes.
It is paid for by the users.
Is that do you think that's been hesitation then in participating? Cost or?
Cost is, can be a little prohibitive for some of the organizations. However, if the organizations can look at what it's costing them now to receive the call, there is a call for that.
I just want to add to that for municipalities, it's actually free of charge to join Ontario One Call right now. So we're trying to encourage municipalities to join, and for those that have very few locate requests, we anticipate that there will continue to be no charge for them, and that's the majority of municipalities. There's only a relatively small number of municipalities that are large enough that would ever pay a membership fee.
Some of the difficulties, too, I spoke to the home builders in Toronto. They were in to see me about another issue, and they said, for example, when they want to do building a home, putting a foundation in, they said, we call a union or Enbridge, and we know that they'll be there within 24 to 48 hours. But, for example, the water system in Toronto, they tell us it can be anywhere in 6 weeks. So the home builder said to me, how the heck can we run a business that way? Because we get our Union Gas, Enbridge locate, we get that done, and some other, and then the water system shows up. Well, these facilities have to come back because they only guarantee them for 24 hours, 48 hours.
Oh no, they're good for about a month.
A month, okay.
The actual locates themselves, but yeah, we experience the exact same thing as somebody who digs a lot of holes. We can get our locates within 48 hours, or it can take up to 6 weeks to get them. So we find the initial locates have expired before we get other locates. It's a very inefficient system.
And so, and I've worked in the industry before, and I know that the stakes can be moved or the ground can be covered over, and so, what was located by responsible industry people, then they have to come back out and redo the relocate, so that adds to the bill, that adds to cost. So this, to me, is all about efficiency, cutting red tape and bureaucracy. It's all about safety and health. It's things we all should be interested in Ontario.
Okay, so just to be clear, so someone is a homeowner, they're about to dig in their backyard for some reason. If it were mandatory, they call this line, the nonprofit center would get in contact with the various potential companies that are affected and say, well, this, and they would send the people out saying, this is
Yeah.
where your water line is, this is where your gas line is?
Sure. Let me answer that particular question. So a homeowner would make a single phone call to Ontario One Call, or they could actually request to locate online. So on the Ontario One Call website, the Ontario One Call will contact all the infrastructure owners, and they would go out under this bill within 5 days to locate all the underground facilities on that particular property in the entire area that they were going to dig.
Okay, so when you mentioned, say, Toronto Water,
Yes.
might that be a concern? They said they can't, they don't maybe feel they have the staff, or they're not prepared to commit to a time frame in which
Yeah.
they would.
They didn't indicate to me that that was an issue. I, haven't spoken to them directly, but I think it's all about safety, and it's about organization. And this one call system, once it's implemented, like, they look after all the infrastructure. They look after actually the biggest job would be loading the data onto the one call data site, because one call will look after that from then on. And there'd be no charge to the homeowner or the builder that's calling and making the call. So it really, at the end of the day, would alleviate safety issues, the bureaucracy with safety issues in the environment. It's so much safer. I like to think of this bill like as Jim spoke to, they've worked cooperative with the government, with the TSSA and the Consumer and Commercial Relations. They've got it so far. I like to think of it as a, let's say a football analogy. We've got the ball, the system to the 1 yard line. We just got to take they're in the huddle, and we got to get it across the finish line. We're there, and everyone knows it's the right thing to do, and for safety and for the environment and for ease of access for people. They know it's the right thing to do. It's just getting it across there.
Bob played football, so we're asking him to carry the ball.
And I'm carrying the ball for the industry and for the associations, and I think that by highlighting it here in the legislature with this, I expect all party support today. When we take it to second reading, I'm sure we will, and we're going to go forward from there. We'll get it into committee. We'll push to get it in committee. This will give us a bully pulpit here at the ledge to go forward and to get the kind of media attention that we need to. We'll talk about this. We've got a long summer. There's going to be picnics and things that we go to, and I'm going to be raising this issue from right through here now till after October the 6th.
The last seconds of the game, though, so I'm wondering before the election what you could possibly. At this point, are you hoping just to draw attention to it and then hope that sometime after the next election, the next government will?
I intend to take this bill right through now. We'll get second reading, and then we are running out of time, but I'd hope to get it. Maybe I'll get third reading and unanimous consent for third reading, and I get the government to implement it. But if they don't, there could be a different government after the next election, and if I'm fortunate enough to be here, and if the people of Sarnia Lambton return me, I'll be back here and I'll be pushing and advocating for this. And if I'm, that would be my idea that this bill's got merit. All parties have told me that, representatives from all parties. My leader has said the same thing. So, I'm not going to back up on this. We're this far, and we're going to get across that finish line. We're going to implement one call for all of Ontario. Okay. Thank you very much for joining us today, and to the members of the media. I know your time is valuable, and thank you very much for being here with us. We'll be handing out some media releases and to all the media. Thank you. And thank you, gentlemen, for joining me here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob.
For your support.
Thank you, Bob.
Paul. Thank you.